All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'm Emily Holliday. I'm your president for NC3 ADL. Today, joining me is Mary Walton, the director for e-learning support and instructional design at Wake Tech, as well as Katie Serber. She is our instructional design coordinator also at Wake Tech. So today we're going to be talking about using ChatGPT and other AI technologies in higher education. We are recording, and we do plan to post the recording to the NC3 ADL YouTube channel after the webinar today, and we will also send it out via email to all those who registered. Just a little bit of just kind of guidance. If everyone wouldn't mind, please keep your video and microphone off while we are presenting, simply because of the number of users that we have participating. There will be some parts where we will have open discussion, and at that point, you're welcome to either raise your hand or turn your microphones on. So with that, I will turn it over to Mary.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Let me get my screen shared. Okay. All right. So going to give you just a little bit of background. I'm Mary Walton, the Director of E-Learning Support and Instructional Design. I have been working in higher education for a little over 25 years. I spent a good portion of my time at Carteret Community College and have been at Wake Tech since 2016. And this is a topic that was near and dear to the hearts of faculty as soon as we returned for Christmas break. So it looks like it has interest everywhere, because we had a large number that have registered to participate with us today. So again, Emily and Katie are going to be co-presenting with me today, and we'll go ahead and get started. So the tool that has caused a lot of attention since November is ChatGPT. For those of you that may not know, ChatGPT was released around Thanksgiving of this year, and in a very short time has climbed to just massive usage. But we're also going to talk about AI, or artificial intelligence in general. And just kind of to get started, wanted to just give you some definitions that I found for artificial intelligence for those who may not be as technically savvy as some others. Artificial intelligence, according to Britannica, is just a digital computer or computer-controlled robot to perform tasks commonly associated with intelligent beings. Another way that Google puts it is that it leverages computers and machines to mimic problem-solving and decision-making capabilities of the human mind. So let's think about a lot of AI technologies that already exist in our daily lives, things from speech recognition to automated captioning, etc. I just listed some here that I know that everybody probably would be familiar with. So there are definitely some technologies out there that AI is making our lives easier or better. And then there's some like ChatGPT that are causing us a little bit of angst right now. So we'll talk about that further.
Yeah, shut down. You have to shut down. If you're connected, I can connect.
And somebody, if you wouldn't mind muting your microphone, I'm hearing a little feedback. Okay, so as I was thinking about this over Christmas holiday, I took vacation a little early, and I got an email from a colleague about ChatGPT. And although I had seen and read a little bit, I really hadn't done a lot of investigation. So I put that on my task list. When I come back from Christmas, I'm going to, start researching and play around with it. And when we came back from Christmas, we had just a large number of faculty reaching out saying, what can you tell us about this? What can we do for the concerns that we're going to talk about a little bit later? So just to throw a little humor in here, when we came back, I noticed that even my Twitter feed was being bombarded with people talking about this particular, and this one I just found kind of funny. It says, "You're growing up with ChatGPT. I grew up with Clippy. We're not the same." So I don't know how many of you remember Clippy. Clippy was kind of a failed attempt that Microsoft had way back in the day in the 90s to act more or less as a personal assistant when you were composing documents either in PowerPoint or Word. It was phased out because not many people liked it. I think a lot of people, they were just closing Clippy all the time. But this is something that is gaining a lot of traction. So what is ChatGPT? Basically, it's a chatbot, and some of its features it answers in conversational tone. So if you put in a prompt, it's going to answer you as though you're having a conversation. It generates responses in a variety of formats. You can ask it to do things like generate an essay, a paper, etc. And it will also answer with follow-up questions. You can tell it something like, tell me a little bit more, or expand on whatever the given prompt was. And ChatGPT has the ability to follow up and carry on that conversation, so to speak, with you. The quality of answers do depend upon the quality of prompt. And so it is taking a huge leap forward from chatbots that we've been accustomed to using. How many of you, and you can just use the show of hands by say, how many of you have been to a website where there is a chatbot present and you found it less than helpful? Okay. So I think all of us have experienced that. This takes it to a new level. Elon Musk tweeted that it's scary good. We're not far from dangerously strong AI. So what's all this talk about? So I'm going to attempt to switch over and share for you a demo of ChatGPT. Emily, if you wouldn't mind putting the poll up while I'm switching, that we wanted to ask a few questions to help guide where we go with this. Okay, so have you tried ChatGPT yet? People are weighing in here. Looking like we're about 50-50 at this point. Okay, so a little more of you, it looks like, haven't used ChatGPT that have. And it looks like there's a lot of curiosity about ChatGPT, not just the fear factor, which I think that was kind of the initial reaction. And are you already thinking of ways that you can use ChatGPT or other AI in your courses? We've got a large percentage that have said no. And are you excited about the possibilities that AI can bring to the learning process? So we've got a good combination of yes and maybe there. Okay, so the website, and this will be shared in the slides that you can take a look at later. So when you look at ChatGPT, and it takes a while for it to pop up sometimes. There is a lot of traffic, but it's just there's just a screen where you type a prompt. So I could say something like, write an essay on courage. And unless the traffic is such that it won't generate quickly, something's missing. So there has been a lot of traffic today, and then we'll talk about that a little more. But it would literally write an essay. You can even give it things like college level essay. You could say things like a certain length, like I'd like, 500 word essay, etc. I will say that because of the adoption rate, which I've got a slide in a few minutes about the adoption rate of ChatGPT and how it's really taken off, you will see a lot of times that when you go in to use it, it's down and it's not generating what you're asking for. Just this week, ChatGPT announced that they are going to a subscription service. $20 a month will buy you priority in getting access to the tool. The interesting thing about that is there's already a wait list for subscribers. So in other words, they're having more people subscribe than they anticipated. So that is one of the challenges that we'll be facing. So here's an interesting just kind of chart that Emily actually sent to me earlier today that I thought I'd throw in here. So the rate of adoption, we look at really big technologies. The chart on the left side of this screen shows how long it took in years for certain things to gain 100 million users worldwide. So the telephone obviously is probably one of the first huge inventions that we'd think of, 75 years. And you'll see that different ones taking up to between 1 and 16 years. Here's an interesting fact. TikTok took 7 months, ChatGPT took only 2. So as you can see from just this little stat here, it is something that's very popular. So on this slide, we're going to talk really briefly about some of the discussions, concerns, and strategies. And Katie's going to lead us in this part of the discussion.
Hey, everyone. So as Mary had shared, when we returned from break, faculty, and I'm sure most of you here, were already concerned with what they have heard about ChatGPT, and some of the concerns that they shared with us definitely had to do with just what can we prevent when it comes to cheating and plagiarism. So Emily's going to share in a moment more about some of the detection tools and what she found in her research when it came to detecting plagiarism in student work. But some of the things that initial early research as instructors and educators have played with this AI tool, some of the things that they have found. What's important to know about this tool when students start to put in their words and they start to get some feedback from it is it's showing that it is not a critical thinker. So what it gives back to students is very straightforward like information. There's no real personal tone to it. It doesn't really go beyond like, this is the writing prompt that I was asked. So there is a distinct difference between this is obviously a robot writing it and a human writing it. So one way to try to discourage, avoid, detect, however you want to look at it, is to look at what type of prompts you are presenting to your students. If you're presenting discussion prompts or if you're presenting assessment prompts that are asking them to recite information to just do that very lowest level of understanding, then they are going to have more likely to have success with this than if you're asking them to move beyond just basic understanding and to do more type of personal pieces, more type of application pieces in your assessment prompt itself. You also can consider looking at the questions more or in general in the class, looking for assessments that really focus on process or demonstration instead of always asking them to write. Now, obviously, there's classes where we cannot avoid that. I teach English when I am not doing instructional design. So of course, my students are going to be writing. But looking at the discussion boards, looking at some of your smaller assignments, is there opportunity where you can ask them for demonstration? Or again, just look, if you want to keep it the way you have it, can you add an additional part to it where you're asking them to really talk about their own experience, their own understanding? One person shared an idea of asking for oral assessments. That can help because again, where it goes back to this is, it's smart, obviously it's creative, but it is just a robot. So when someone starts to recite it, it sounds a little bit different. And so when your students have to talk to you, you're gonna be able to pick up on that a little bit easier. We also have talked to some faculty and some faculty have shared that we don't want to treat this as if we're not aware that this is what's going on. And if we think back to our own experiences as students, we probably at one time, we were the student and our faculty members were the ones concerned about whatever technology trends were changing, right? Like for me, when I was in college, it was very much when Ask Jeeves came out, people were really concerned that this was going to kill research. So we want to have the conversations with our students. So making sure that we are discussing it, putting it on the syllabus, letting them know that this is your policy, that you are aware that this is out there, that you do look for, that you are familiar, you become familiar with their style, that this is something that you are checking for, and then really talking, making it a part of the conversation. Like, what are you missing from the experience if you choose to take this route? What is the cost and benefit to this? Is it really worth you simply putting in this search, getting an answer, when later there really is no real application that you can take with that information? So that's some of the ideas that were shared with us, but we also wanted to take a moment and open it up and see, for those of you who have looked at this, if you have come up with other ideas or other conversations, if anyone would like to share the experience that they had or ideas that they had in their own brainstorming. Yeah, Nathan shared, and we're going to talk a little bit more too about some of the benefits to it. But one he mentioned right now is the 24-hour tutor aspect of it. Same with one other comment, the idea of looking at it as an activity, which is, this is a good one. What is good about it? How can you improve about it? Yes, idea generator. Is another really good one. Yeah. Outlining essays, first drafts. Oh, I like that what Erica shared in the chat, the idea that not just first drafts, because this is not one that I've seen in that conversation, the idea that it can tailor responses to our different age groups, because we are community college, and so we are aware that our student dynamic is different. So that would be a really interesting conversation to see how it looks different. I mean, actually a pretty fun activity now that I'm thinking about it, how it would look different based on our student population, what they put in, what they came out. Oh, good. If you had students, ESL, ELL students, a really good opportunity for them to do some activities with them as well. Yeah, a lot of good ideas. Oh, yeah, gosh, you guys you guys came up with some good ones that we had not I had not thought about before this too. So Ben commented in the chat, requiring students to use specific research articles to complete assignments. That was his question. So yeah, I think Emily, when she looked through some, and she might touch on this slide too, what she found when she was looking at some of the tools and what it detected. And if she doesn't answer that question, we'll circle back, because I don't want to, if she was already thinking about how addressing that one.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah. So a little bit of the topic of conversation was, detection tools, and are there detection tools that can obviously help you as faculty in determining are students using ChatGPT or other AI technologies for their assignments. So the slide you're seeing here is two of the most common detection tools that are primarily used inside the LMS. So you've got Safe Assign, which is, obviously in Blackboard, and then Turnitin, which can also be used in Blackboard. I know a lot of middle schools use it as well. So these are some screenshots here of some essays that I was able to generate using ChatGPT, and then I posted them to Safe Assign and Turnitin. I don't believe it's up there now, but when ChatGPT first came about, you could give it a topic, and then you could also hit regenerate, and it would basically write you another essay based off the same topic. So some of the first things that I put in were, what are the causes of World War II? And then another prompt that I put was what are the ethical implications of the Enron scandal? And you'll see from Safe Assign, it pretty much pulled up 0%. Turnitin pulled up a little bit more in similarity, but if you notice the images that are towards the right, it shows you where those resources came from. And I also put, your specific to your Safe Assign report, kind of dug a little bit deeper, and it shows you the language that it pulled from with the resources. And if you look at the language, it's, what someone calls sort of your common language. It's, structure of sentences that most of us wouldn't even consider as a potential plagiarism issue when it comes to detection tools. So just to kind of give you that insight, Safe Assign and Turnitin, the two primary use tools are not quite there yet. I do know that Turnitin has sent a message out. They are in the planning process of trying to incorporate more from specifically ChatGPT, GPT, and other learning, other AI technologies into their detection tools. Not quite there yet. However, there are some other detection tools out there that we found, and we've actually posted them at the end of this slide, and Mary will go over some of them as well. And of course, we'll share the slides with everyone after the fact as well. But there are detection tools that you can actually use that can help. And what these do, however, they work a little bit different in that they can pretty much give you a detection to let you know, is the writing real or fake? Is it human written, or is it written by AI technologies? So there definitely are some tools that can help with this, and I'll let Mary kind of give you an idea and give you some more information about those.
Yeah, so as Emily was talking about, Safe Assign and Turnitin, they're built on the prospect of looking at text that's submitted and whether or not it's original. In other words, it checks it against information found in other locations to see if the information that has been submitted by a student is their original work, or if it's been copied, or has too many instances where things are not summarized well, not cited properly, etc. So what these tools do is a little different. They are not looking for originality, because I entered the same prompt many times into ChatGPT, and it gave me very different answers each time. In other words, you would look at them and not necessarily think that it had been taken from the same source. So they're looking at the likelihood that something is written by AI versus the likelihood that written by a human. And one of the articles I read went into a lot of detail, and they talked about things like perplexity scoring, or one of them talked about things like burstiness, and how humans, when they transition from one sentence to another, is done a little differently. In other words, as Katie mentioned, some of the things that are generated sound like it may have been written by a robot. So here are three that I found. I've really only played around extensively with two of them, because the AI text classifier is newer to the field. So GTP-0 is a tool that actually was developed by a student at, and I may get the college wrong, I believe it was Princeton. And this is not for release, for sale, or anything yet. He actually wrote the code over his Christmas break, and you literally can copy something and paste it into, I don't know if you can see the screenshot, the little box here, and when you press Control Enter, you'll come to a screen, and then there's a choice to get the result, and then it'll come up and tell you whether or not your text is most likely AI or most likely human generated. And another one is Roberta, which is by a site called Hugging Face, and very similar. You copy and paste into a little box. This one doesn't give you quite as much information about how it went about the check, but it will tell you whether the percentage is likely to be real or fake, is how they put it. And then AI Text Classifier is even more newly released, and it's actually produced by the same group that put out ChatGPT. And so you, again, copy and paste, and it'll come up and tell you whether or not something is most likely human written, AI generated, etc. So here's what we're telling our faculty, because faculty have been asking, what are the detection tools and how can I use it for evidence if I suspect a student has been cheating? And here is our advice. All of these tools are very new. They're not for commercial use at this time, or for, you know, for us to pay for. They're not proven. As a matter of fact, I had a faculty member contact me last week. He was using GPT-0 and Roberta. One told him that the results were most likely human generated, and the other told him most likely AI generated. What do I do? And so here's what we're telling folks. These tools right now you can access for free. And I would, if I suspected a student was submitting work that is generated by AI, I probably would do a check across multiple tools. And if I had reason to believe after checking it that it was AI generated, use that as a conversation starter with the student. I believe that Emily even indicated that she had had such a conversation with a student. When she started the conversation with the student up and up of, you know, confessed to the fact that they had cut corners. So, you know, we are not advising in any way that faculty rely on any of these checkers as evidence, but as a conversation starter to then talk about what are appropriate uses for this type of technology and what are not appropriate uses, and what your expectations are in your classroom. So that's what we have as far as detection tools as a means for preventing the cheating and plagiarism. And Katie's going to talk with us a little more. We're going to have a little bit more conversation about some positive ways to incorporate ChatGPT.
Yeah, so some of these some of these were mentioned in the chat, and so I apologize, it might seem a little bit repetitive, and then we'll look at the chat and see if any other ideas were shared. But one of the things that I thought as an instructional designer was pretty exciting when I started reading some of the research was the creative ways that some of the educators have looked at ChatGPT as an opportunity in the classroom. And so how they have started to experiment with it, what are some of the things that they have done? Some of the initial ideas, and then of course there were some even better ideas shared in our chat, but bringing ChatGPT directly into the classroom as part, not just as part of the conversation, but as part of the activities that you do with your students. So one way, use it for providing feedback, and that could be feedback in a writing class in a sense of almost like a peer review type of setting. It could be feedback for you. It could be feedback as part of the assignment, like asking your students, even if it's not a writing class per se, to enter their answer into ChatGPT and see what it says back. If it says something different than they had initially said. The one-on-one assistance, this was offered in the chat as well. We looking at ChatGPT as a way that there could be an extra tutor in the classroom. Of course, we refer our students to tutor services quite often. And for some students who that might feel that they don't have enough time to do that, or they feel, you know, it might sound intimidating for them to do that. I mean, this is a good opportunity for them to be able to put in some ideas that they're confused by, or terms that maybe they want a second definition for. So it could be a good one-on-one assistance. I think someone mentioned a debate partner activity. That was one that I saw that sounded really, I think, a fun idea, that the students, once they have developed their point of view, putting in the same topic into ChatGPT, see if what ChatGPT generates, but then even putting in the opposing viewpoint, and then bringing that back into the classroom, having a conversation and having to defend their position. It's a really good way for them to have to practice critical thinking and how to have a good debate, good argument in the classroom. Teaching just general digital literacy, an important soft skill that we're putting on our students. This is something that's, you know, going to continue to be in our world. And so we continue to show it to them, recognize that it's there, and show them how it can just be beneficial to them in the classroom. Some getting started, just sparking, generating ideas, basic brainstorming activities, that it could be a really just a fun starting point for them to get started. So other ideas, and I'll look at the chat and share some of the ones that other people have been sharing too. Let's see. Oh, it looks like a few people are asking and having about if there's a difference, and I'm not sure, Mary or Emily, if you have looked at it, with Grammarly and ChatGPT, or if anyone else has looked at the two.
Yeah, so I have had some English faculty talk to me about the fact that they were able to feed in and ask it to put in a passage and asked it to correct and give them the correct grammar and spelling of what they had put in. Again, it wasn't 100%, but it was pretty good. Versus Grammarly is working as you're writing something. This would be an after the fact kind of thing. While we're waiting, you know, think of ways that you can use this to save time for yourself as well. I think that one of the things that we tend to forget about is, you know, how it can save us time. I know, for example, when I was first playing around with the tool, I was putting in various things, and one of the first things that popped in my mind is I need to, you know, do a webinar for our faculty rather quickly because we're getting so much interest. And I put in, you know, generate an outline for me on a 1-hour webinar on the impact of ChatGPT and AI in higher education, and it spit out a pretty good outline and even gave me suggested times for the various talking points in said outline. Of course, what I'm doing today looks nothing like that outline that it gave me, but I found that, you know, for starting points, or, you know, things like even those of us that don't teach in a field where writing is our expertise. A lot of times when we give a writing assignment for students, we read something and we know that it needs to be phrased differently. Put it in and ask it to phrase it differently, you know, for you, to help you think of another way to say something. You know, giving feedback on feeding it prompts of things that students have given you, and asking it, you know, for information on a given topic, so that it's a quick way to take a look at some other ideas that might be given back to the student, etc. I see somebody commented in the chat, Grammarly is also working to add AI detection. I hadn't read that. That's good information. We had ChatGPT write questions to ask participants for an online discussion. They were pretty good. Yes. So if you're trying to think of good discussion prompts that on a given topic, I've heard several faculty say that they had used that. Okay. Okay, Katie, anything else that you or anyone else wants to add?
No, I think that we shared so many good ideas at the beginning, but if others have further ideas, if you keep putting them in, I know that other people definitely want to see those and benefit it for sure.
So I see one question in the chat that's intriguing, because it's going to lead into something I'm going to talk about in just a minute. Erica said, how long before Grammarly uses ChatGPT to better the product? Well, I don't have an answer for that. What I can speak about is one of the releases that came about this week was that, I think it was yesterday, that Microsoft Teams released an integration with ChatGPT yesterday. Now it's subscription based, but there's a lot of articles that talk about the billions, yes, I said billions of dollars that Microsoft is investing in plans in the future for incorporating ChatGPT in a lot of its products, including Word, PowerPoint, its Bing search engine. Like I said, it's already releasing something for Teams. So this is not something that is going to go away and phase out. It doesn't look like. So wanted to have a little bit of conversation, and I'm hoping that we have some faculty here from some fields where this is a little bit more difficult to think about. When we think about, you know, humanities and English and subjects where there is a lot of writing, it's kind of, I almost think a little easier to think about how to work with and how to prevent some of these things from happening. But in some other fields, it's much more difficult to think of strategies. For computer science, for example, I've had a lot of my tech friends tell me that they were looking to generate code to do, you know, small programs and whatnot in a specific language. And they asked ChatGPT and it spit out the code for exactly what the problem was they were trying to solve, and it was pretty good, straight out of, as they put it, straight out of the box. So some strategies that I found in reading for some of these fields, for computer science, for example, it talked about limiting the percentage for low stakes assignments like homework, doing more controlled settings for exams for your assessment, maybe even doing some oral exams, giving flawed solutions and asking for a description of what the flaws are and why, although I've also heard that ChatGPT can generate that kind of response. Focus on best coding practices. For math, ChatGPT is really good at straightforward things like take this expression, for example, and factor it, and being able to do that and show the steps. But what it's not particularly good at is when you give it a complex word problem and ask it for a correct answer. There's not high reliability in the answers that it gives for those types of problems. So interested in hearing other ideas from faculty who may teach in some of those areas for some strategies or things that you can think of for assessing differently or avoiding ChatGPT completing work for all of your students. What are some of the ideas that maybe some of the rest of you have? Okay, Ed says, I wonder how well it will emulate good problem solving. So yep, showing steps, Ed, if it's a pretty straightforward, you know, solve the equation kind of thing, yes. But when you throw in and making it a word problem where it has to analyze situation and context, it's not very good at that. What I would say, I think that if I remember correctly, when we did the poll at the beginning, a large percentage of you said that you haven't used this yet. I would encourage you to go out and use it and try your own assessments and prompts that you have for some of your assignments or tests against ChatGPT to see what kind of outcomes you get. That will give you a good idea of, you know, how you might start thinking about assessment or phrasing things or presenting things a little differently for student work. It works well if you need extra examples of a problem. Good, Nathan. Major point, ChatGPT and other AI solutions are not going away. The cat is out. I started to say chat. The cat is out of the bag. It's up to us to learn how to adapt. Are we thinking about ChatGPT in the right way? At one time, calculators, grammar checkers, and other computing was frowned upon. Does ChatGPT create a new starting point for education? It seems human experience is an area of focus. Scott, that's a very good point. I think I said to multiple people that this is the scary time where when I was a student, yeah, we had basic calculators, but when they started out coming out with calculators that would do more advanced things like graphing and doing some more of the statistical functions and things. That was the kind of the same scare that math educators had. Very good point there. Make assignments that relate to the student as an individual. Christine, I like that a lot. I know that I was having a conversation with our health sciences dean, and one of the recommendations that she gave was, because you could ask ChatGPT for things like, here are the symptoms, give me a diagnosis. And, it was coming up with, some pretty good diagnosis and even the information to back up why. But turning that around to the student, to when you ask them certain prompts, have them relate to the situations that they've experienced in their practice, in their work experience that they've been doing, etc. Okay. Lots of good information in the chat. And Emily, I suppose this is something we can download and provide later so that everybody can have access to read all of these.
Yes.
Okay. And I cannot see my clock the way I have my screen shared. So Emily, you can let me know how we're doing with time, but I think that we're almost kind of wrapping up with what we have. Emily will also provide for you the PowerPoint that we're sharing today. So we've got several AI detection tools. I only mentioned 3 of them, but Emily had included some additional ones that she had found research on. We haven't played with or tested all of these. The 3 that are listed first on this slide are the ones that we've played around some. And I will say that for the majority of what I put in that I generated with ChatGPT, it was able to detect it was AI in most instances. Some types of things that it wasn't really good at detecting. One of the things that I had it do was write me a poem on a couple of topics, and neither of the 2 detectors that I checked with that particular prompt were able to detect that the poems were AI generated. So there were some types of content that were not as reliably flagged as others. But it did a pretty good job. And then I also put in some things that were original text that either I or a student had submitted, and it detected those as human generated. So in, kind of me playing around with it, was pretty good. Some additional resources that we wanted to provide for you, of course, how do you get a ChatGPT? There was one that one of our faculty members brought up, Cactus AI, that I included on this resources slide, because that one, to me, although I haven't played around with it to test and see kind of the quality of content that it generates, one of the things that was really eye-opening to me is the way that they are targeting students. You go into it and there's a dashboard set up, and it assumes that you're coming into it needing something for your classroom, and it's got a dashboard of what do you need. I need Python code, I need the answer to a discussion board question, I need an essay. And so they would click on the various categories to start and then put in the prompt. That one to me was so well designed to help aid the student in what it is that they're looking for, that that one was very interesting to me. We talked, or Katie talked a little bit about going ahead and including on your syllabus kind of your policy and your expectations around use of ChatGPT or other AI in your classroom. We found an article that had some really good ideas for that. And then there are some discussions. The next 2 bullets are some pretty lengthy forums that were hosted with faculty across the country that I found to be very interesting. And then another article that was talking about ways that you can harness the power of AI for learning. So Emily is going to put up one last poll question for us. And it's after today's presentation, do you have a more positive view of ChatGPT or other AI in higher education? Yes, no, or maybe? Okay, so we see that the majority are either yes or maybe at this point. So in looking at that, would you all like to share some of the, and feel free to unmute yourself and speak if you would prefer that versus typing in the chat. What are some takeaways today that you would like to mention that maybe changed your view, or that you found alarming or positive, whatever how you want to phrase it? What are some things that you want to mention as we're closing today that you've thought about because of today's presentation? Okay. The professor's subreddit also has great mega thread on this. Great. I may ask it to write a syllabus policy for me. Good use. See what it has to tell you. Although I asked it to define itself, it didn't know what itself was. For me, it's been an eye-opener. Yes, if you haven't been experimenting with, and you've only heard people talk about it, when you start playing with it, really is an eye-opener. Okay. Creative ideas like the suggestions for personalized assignments and scaffolding. Okay. All right, with that, I'll turn it over to Emily.
All right, thank you, Mary, and thank you everyone for participating. Good discussion going with ChatGPT and AI. So we are recording. I will get this posted to the NC3 ADL YouTube channel, and I will send it out to all who registered. I will also be sending the PowerPoint slides, as well as saving the chat and trying to send that as well, in case you want to gather any ideas for future. So with that, I'm